Welcome to the CBT Dive, a vodcast that goes into the lives of real people with real struggles. Each episode welcomes a new guest who wants to explore a challenging situation using the most common cognitive behavioral therapy tool, the thought record. Your host, Rahim, is a social worker and psychotherapist based in Toronto and well known for his work in LGBTQ communities. He's created the CBT Dive to demystify what therapy can look like and share intervention skills for wellness. We hope that each episode helps you along on your own journey for insight and self-compassion.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the CBT Dive. Today, I'm welcoming a guest named Adnan, who's joining us all the way from Johannesburg. He loves to travel and has aspirational eyebrows that enter a room before he does. Adnan has lived with OCD for all of his life and has seen a CBT therapist and had good experiences using exposure exercises. I met Adnan in 2017 when I was visiting South Africa, and look forward to spending time with him again when I return in fall of 2021. Adnan, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you volunteered to be a guest. Can you tell me a little bit about what you know about CBT? You mentioned that you've used exposure exercises. I'm just curious to know your general knowledge or what you're coming in with.
So CBT and DBT. So I've played around with a little bit of both. I've tried every type of therapy just because you try to find the one that really works for you. My exposure or my treatments with CBT was with the leading specialist in South Africa, Dr. Kalinda Linda. And we tried a whole bunch of different techniques from trying different approaches to understanding thoughts, to exposure therapy, ERP, I think it was called, and different ways to deal with OCD, and specifically the tendencies to clean and for my symmetry. So yeah, yes. I have a perfectionism symmetry. So that was actually what we used. Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think for listeners, it's important for them to know that if we were working on a situation specific to obsessive thoughts or compulsion, we would actually use a thought record in a different way than I've typically been using it on this vodcast. And for a lot of folks, the thoughts aren't the entry point for change. They might start with behavior. So when you talk about doing exposures or behavioral experiments, those are the entry point is behavior. So today, I'm excited to have you here because we're actually examining something that's not related to your OCD diagnosis, but more about you navigating the world as a gay man. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen.
There we go.
All right. So can you see that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, perfect. So the situation you had identified before we began was this moment where you hesitate to set bottom as a preference on Grindr. So for people listening who don't know what that means or what we're talking about, just a bit of context, when we're on online dating and hookup apps, it often asks what your sexual role preference is, to be a penetrative partner or a receptive partner. And both are fabulous options, but I think as we explore this, we'll see why Adnan hesitates. So, Adnan, are you good with this situation?
Yeah.
Keeping it this way?
That's exactly, okay. Yeah, let's keep it as is, yeah.
Okay. So one other question I have is, are you changing your preferences and profiles regularly? Or is this just more like the one time when you were getting onto the app?
No, it often comes with what space I'm in. So yeah, it's hard to answer that question without answering a bigger question, which is I changed the profile based on the safety that I feel based on where I am geographically. So, if I'm vacating somewhere where I'm anonymous, I'm more inclined to be more authentic and true to myself. Where I'm in the city, I might take off my preference entirely. So it just depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And when's the last time you were on your phone and fiddling with your preferences and you actually hesitated to set bottom as a preference?
About a week ago, I just moved down to Cape Town. So new city.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? Actually, this is it. Like, how long are you going to make this a thing or allow it to be one? If there is toxic masculinity or issues within this process or society, this is where I draw the line. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. So your most recent experience was 1 week ago, right? So I want you to think back to that time, because I think having a recent experience in mind helps us focus what's going on for you like presently, right? Because your hesitation 1 week ago is going to be slightly different than your hesitation 3 years ago, for example.
Yeah. Or when I was traveling. Oh, bless you.
Exactly. When you're traveling, yes, it is different. So a week ago, when you were hesitating to set your preferences on Grindr, what were some of the feelings you were experiencing?
I think the overwhelming feeling was shame, fear of judgment specifically, name calling. Yeah, I thought I'd get stereotyped, labeled specifically, and then I thought I'd be limiting myself as well.
Okay. So when you think about, there's a couple of feelings I think that are hidden in there. So when you talk about name calling or being targeted in a way, does that speak to being self-conscious, or trying to think of feeling
very. I feel almost inadequate. Like there's something. Yeah. It makes me feel self-conscious, but more importantly, inadequate or lesser than.
Okay. So self-conscious and inadequate are really good feeling words, I think, to describe what you were talking about. The second thing you mentioned was limiting your options. So there's something about being, I don't know if strategic is a feeling, or you're thinking, or are you anticipating rejection? Is that the feeling?
It's almost like there's definitely a judgment of society there, which comes from that self-consciousness of like, can I be safe here? So I feel unsafe, I suppose.
Yes.
The idea being that if I put it's not that big a deal, right? It shouldn't be such a big deal, but in my head it is, and I just don't feel comfortable. Yeah.
So I'm glad you used the word unsafe, because that definitely is a feeling. With issues of safety, the other feeling that usually accompanies this is worry or anxiety. Would you say those were present? Either of those?
Yeah, some sort of anxiety, and I like to break anxiety down.
Tell me.
And I always think of it as fear of what? I mean, isn't that what anxiety really is? And then I think of what is that fear that I'm fearing, or what is that going on inside, that I call this whole lump of emotion anxiety. And I think that it's literally just it comes from I can feel already like a childhood wound of not being good enough. So that already comes up to the surface. They were like,
and not being good enough. I mean, I think that's captured with inadequate, but if you want to, we could also add a feeling of like inferiority, if that's coming up for you.
No, inadequacy, I think, is perfect.
Inadequacy. Okay. I'm going to name a couple other feelings just in case we've missed anything. So I want you to think about Grindr, and, you're setting your preferences. Is there any sadness?
No.
Is there any excitement or eagerness?
Oh, for Grindr.
There's
always. It is. It's like anticipation. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's
those are
almost lustful. It's like
yes,
you go on when there's like
like that. There's a sexual charge. There's an energy.
there's a sexual
about
charge.
it.
Right? There's something. Right.
Yes. Yeah. So
and I definitely think. Yeah. No, definitely. And maybe a little bit hopeful. No.
Yeah. Is there a feeling of longing?
More validating. Longing could be actually it. Yeah, like the idea of I want a reason not to use this app.
Yes. And I think when you're talking about seeking a kind of connection beyond something casual, it seems like longing might be the right feeling. So we've got some challenging feelings and also some pleasant feelings. And I think it's important to name them at the outset, right? Like, because you might also ask yourself, hey, if it brings up shame, fear, self-consciousness, inadequacy, unsafeness, and anxiety, why do I do this thing? Well, it also brings up excitement, anticipation, lustfulness, hopefulness, longing. So in this situation where you were hesitating to, set your preference on Grindr, and this was just 1 week ago, you went from Johannesburg to Cape Town. So you entered a new city and these feelings come up. For that moment, I want you to rate the intensity of each of these feelings. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 would be the most intense. So how would you rate your experience of shame in that situation?
Shame was quite strong. Let's make it an 8.
Okay. What about fear?
7.
Self-conscious?
9.
Inadequate?
5.
Unsafe?
8.
Anxiety
7.
or anxious? Okay. What about excitement?
Oh, I was excited. 9.
Oh, okay. Anticipation?
6.
Lustful?
Here's where the real tea comes out, honey. There was a pretty good 8. Yeah.
Okay, great. Hopeful?
8.
Okay. And longing?
6. Yeah.
6. Okay, beautiful. So in that moment, you're deciding what to do. What did you do? Or did you leave it blank? That's always an option as well.
I did something. I compromised with myself. So I knew I tossed between this idea in my head because intellectually I understood immediately what was happening, right? I don't know if it's easier for me to first explain to you what happened and then we can find the right column for it.
Sure. Tell me what you did in the moment. Even if you were... part of it was thinking or reflecting or going back and forth. Those are all.
I ended up choosing. Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to. I'm just in the space right now where I really just want a bottom, which is perfectly fine. And in Joburg, my profile was completely silent about it. Right. If you had asked me, we speak about it, sure. But why doesn't it just publicly say it? What's going on? So my first behavior was like, I'm in a new city. It's my new chapter, a new page with a new pen, and I'm the author. And if I'm writing a story again, I want to do it differently. And this time, I just don't want to give my power or autonomy away to anybody else. And if this is what I want to be doing, then that's what I'm going to do. And so I did. I changed it to bottom. But then I was like, wait, hold on. There was this immediate feeling of, oh shit,
dread.
But then I don't know whether Cape Town is as open-minded as it should be, and what if they don't, because I'm also versatile if I wanted. So then I was like, okay, cool, then just change to bottom burst. And the truth with Rahim is that it wasn't bottom burst because I can be versatile. That's not, everybody's capable of being versatile if they want.
Yeah.
But the point is that I was bottom burst because I knew inside it was minimizing my anxiety. I did it almost like a condom or prep or something. It was like almost to minimize the risk exposure. Yeah.
You know, you started talking about some important thoughts that were coming up for you, and I'd love to capture some of those. So in this situation, you know, you're feeling shame, fear, self-consciousness, inadequacy, being unsafe, anxious, and you're thinking about your own power. You also said something about minimizing risk. So expand on that a little bit. What else were you? What were you thinking specifically?
Like, I just felt like, okay, what if I meet like a really cute guy, and what if like he's also like versatile, but then he labels me or reads my profile, which actually happened, which is the beauty part. Because then I don't know if I manifested it, but later, an hour or two later, a friend asterisk texted me on WhatsApp to say, "Oh, hey, Mr. Bottom," winking face, you know, a whole situation. And I was just like, see, it's not just in my head. It's like it really is. Anyway, he messages me just to say that he's in a space in his life and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he has a lot of energy, which I'm just like living for. But that's not the point. The point being is that in the moment when I put it on, I thought, am I limiting myself? Am I setting myself up to be just cast aside as, oh, you're just another inferior almost, or powerless? It's not really necessarily, I didn't measure the transaction in power first. It was more about respect. I just didn't want to be brushed with the same paintbrush as just being, because I had a preference about something. And I hate that I did that. So it was completely myself. I felt disrespected.
Okay, I'm going to slow you down for a second. You've got some good ideas that are coming out here, and I just want to see if I can capture them. So one of the things you talk about is, and this is one of your thoughts, right? I might meet a really cute guy who, and I didn't finish that sentence. You were going to say something about, I think a missed opportunity with him being verse and you.
Yes, he might just say, oh, this guy's not really, you know, he's not as open to opportunity as I would like him to be. Yeah. I don't know who's our audience specifically, but if they can read between the lines, I'll understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah. So one of your thoughts here is, I might meet a really cute guy who is looking for a verse person, i.e. open to opportunity. And so if I were to distill this a little bit, your fear or your concern here is that I could miss an opportunity.
Yeah. Or I could end up swiping left on someone, or someone will swipe left on me, but not give me the chance to actually not define me by a preference. Yes. Like, don't define me by a preference. That's what I'm asking.
I'll be defined by a preference.
Yeah.
Someone might swipe left without giving me a chance. I could miss an opportunity to meet someone. Help me finish that sentence. Someone great, someone who's the perfect match, someone for today.
Compatible.
Oh, so I could miss the opportunity to meet someone that's actually compatible?
Yeah. Because the thing is, Rahim, like if I explore the preference, if I'm in a relationship, I'm not just bottom. Like with my partner, I probably will be more versatile. Like I have been in my past. It's just if it was no strings attached, I definitely then, you know, bottom.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other automatic thoughts that I want to get at is you talk about I think limiting yourself. I think we captured above here.
Captured it because opportunities, yeah.
Yeah. But when you say I will be disrespected or I might be disrespected, can you tell me more about that? In what way would you be disrespected? Like, will someone do people say nasty things to you if you
Not
select
to
your preference as a
me
bottom?
about bottom, people who are bottom. We all do it actually, or inadvertently or not.
Okay.
We make these jokes that we don't stop, or God forbid, part of the jokes will make the jokes, but we do that as gay men all the time within society about how we judge people based on the way they dress or the way they use their hands or how feminine they are is a judgment of how their sexual preference might turn out. So a more feminine person would be seen as, more bottom, which is not necessarily true. And we know this, but it doesn't matter because we still make those jokes and we perpetuate that toxic masculinity issue, which is what whether I like to fight this or not, I believe in, right? Because it's not a thing unless I allowed it to be a thing. So my automatic thought was, don't be too femme. And if you say you're bottom, they're immediately going to say no to you because, you're just another, And I didn't want that. I didn't want to be left. I'm starting again. Do I really want to be left powerless in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if
I allow femme to be weak.
Okay.
I see femme as weakness.
Sure. So I am weak. So we're talking about, so I will be disrespected, right? Gay men judge each other about their feminine qualities. And so if you say you're a bottom, being a receptive partner is equated with femininity, right? So they'll think I'm too thin. Too thin. They'll think I'm too femme.
Too vulnerable.
Yeah. And then you're thinking, I am weak.
Submissive, like we definitely should talk about that a lot more. But the automatic thought is immediately this is lesser than. But don't say you bottom because they won't respect you as much as they would respect you if you were versatile. And even if you are versatile, I don't want to start an inauthentic page in my chapter. I want to start it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder. So the part where you say, you're feeling like the thought is that I'm weak, or it's almost becomes like a belief. But can you tell me a bit about like the pressure around being a particular kind of man? Because you mentioned toxic masculinity, and part of how we understand that is, yes, feminine qualities are not celebrated. But for you, what are people conveying to you, or what are you thinking? So if being a bottom is equated with femininity and people will think you're too femme and then you're weak, I think we're missing a piece here. There's an additional piece around I'm not man enough, or what is, So, and if you're not man enough, what's the consequence of that? You've frozen for me.
Very vulnerable to me.
Hello? Hello.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's totally fine. No. Don't worry about it. The last thing, so we were talking about, I had said that one of the thoughts here is that I'm not man enough. And you were going to explain. So
I chose to use my name and show my face and talk about something that is very, I'm very vulnerable about sharing, because it's important for me to address this. And when it comes to sex, I think that I have this belief that tops are viewed as more macho, more masculine, more dominant, where bottoms are considered to be more feminine, more submissive. Of course, there are exceptions, and I know there are exceptions. You get femme tops and dom bottoms, and that's great. But whatever way we order them, it suggests that there's a hierarchy or pecking order. That the active, the top, is better, and it's more better than being bottom, more passive. And I mean, I think that like people will say that they're versatile, rather than admit their bottom just because they don't want to be associated with those stereotypes, and that person is me. And it took me a very long time to realize that I am part of that same system that perpetuates the idea that, lesser than is feminine. And the bottom line, I mean, pun intended, is that toxic masculinity it plays a huge part in the gay community. It influences the stereotypes we have about sexual positions, and it defines our manliness. It tells us that basically strength is everything and emotions are weakness. And that weird assumption that I've made that a bottom is more emotional and therefore more feminine is just really horrible. And you know what? Even if I was just bottom and just feminine, I should be perfectly okay with that, but I'm somehow just not. And I don't know who is this person that's taking this power away from me. I don't get it, right?
Right.
It makes me angry at myself.
What I'm hearing there is like part of this idea or thought of not being man enough is connected to this idea that strength is everything and emotions are weak. And so part of not being man enough comes from being equated with a feminine position in sex. And you're saying that essentially people will see you as being in touch with emotions or being emotionally expressive. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, like, because somebody has to be vulnerable enough to let another man inside of him and willing enough to do it, he gets the label of being weak and feminine. But that's obviously not true. Logically, it makes complete sense to me. But emotionally, it doesn't. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't click. And I mean, we know that, bottom shaming is like historic. When I read up about it, it comes from Roman and Greek times, where it was done from, you know what I mean? It's been going on forever. But the whole point is that I think a lot of my shame comes from society. And also historically, like the idea is that it's associated very closely with the feminine, because the feminine has to be the more vulnerable person to allow the other man in. But that means I also then equate women to be lesser than to men. I don't do. I'm the most strongest supporter of feminism.
Okay.
And
I appreciate this. So you're talking a lot about like a system and a structure and how you both oppose ideas and have a critical understanding of them, but also how you've been socialized in a world where you've internalized some of these narratives and struggle with them. So then you've given me a lot of thoughts here, and it's good. We have a lot to work with. I'm just going to read through them. And we may expand on a couple of them. We may not. So let's see if we need to expand further. So the first set of thoughts is I might meet a really cute guy who is looking for a verse person, open to opportunity. I'll be defined by my preference. Someone might swipe left without giving me a chance. I could miss an opportunity to actually meet someone that's actually compatible. So that one, to me, it speaks a lot about opportunity, missed connection, you trying to figure out the design of the technology and how it pigeonholes you and how to work around it so that you can maximize opportunity for connection. Now,
because Grindr allows for filtering, right?
Yeah.
If you put a filter, someone will just automatically filter you completely out. And so a lot of people that are completely top or completely bottom don't put a preference down. And that's their way of opposing the system of having to publicly declare a preference. A straight heterosexual couple wouldn't have to do the same. So why do we? Although that's not really the same argument, but I get what they're trying to do. So that's my issue, is that if I do put a preference down, I might be filtered completely out.
Okay. And so if that happens, what's so bad about that? Or what's the consequence of it? Or what does it say about you if you're overlooked?
Sure, that's a lot. So I guess it's just...
Let's go with what does it mean or what does it say about you if you're overlooked?
Yeah, so I guess it just brings up like a lot of like emotion of sadness. Then it becomes anger, like in very internal, bitter anger. It's not an anger that's outwardly expressed. It's very internal, which is to say, I think almost a depression. That it says that you are not good enough. It'll continuously come back. It reaffirms that, see, these boys don't even like you. I mean, it's, they're not even willing to give you a chance. So I'm being overlooked would then imply that I've never been worthy of.
Yeah. All right. How are you feeling as you talk about that?
I can soldier through my therapy sessions. I'm looking cute.
Yes. Look, it's okay if emotions come up here. If you want to process them after, we will, after this recording, also do a debrief. Okay. So as we distill some of the automatic thoughts, it looks like we're hitting on something, right? So the last thought that you talked about is, I'm being overlooked because I'm not good enough.
And I never was. Like, that's my childhood shit. That stems from whatever, all the circumstances of that childhood. And I guess I'm spending the rest of my life trying to validate myself out of that pattern, conditional, and then what comes up for me is just that it's that almost confirmation bias. Like I'm confirming a bias that I already had formed about myself.
Yeah.
And that bias is that I'm not good enough, which I know is not true. But I still I spend the rest of my life trying to confirm it.
Now, if we go to the next set of thoughts that you had, I think they can be clustered together. So I will be disrespected. Gay men judge each other about their feminine qualities. So when you tell me a bit more about that, you say bottom is equated to femininity. Tops are more macho or dom. They'll think I'm too femme. And the consequence of that, or what does that mean to be femme? It means I'm weak. I'm at the bottom of the hierarchy. I'm not man enough. Strength is everything and emotions are weak. And you pull it all together by really saying, a bottom has to be vulnerable and therefore assumed to be more emotional. Now, I wonder about being vulnerable and emotional. Why do people not like that? How does that not serve you? Like, why is that looked down upon? Why is that not valued? Being vulnerable or emotional?
Because for somehow then alpha is more desirable. And an alpha doesn't show emotion. He's cold and reserved. And someone who displays qualities that are more feminine, which is expressive and creative and more in their body, would be seen as lesser than compared to a macho male. Society perpetuates that patriarchy till today. We see it all the time.
Yes.
And we continue to do the same issue in our LGBT community. There's no space for it.
Sure. And so I'm curious about how you internalize the message. So if the message is that being vulnerable and emotional is less desirable, or it makes you less of a man.
In a club situation or like at a bar, I know I'm not as feminine as I want to be. I stand a little more straight acting.
Yes. And so
I'm very conscious of this idea that don't be too femme, otherwise this man is not good, who's across the room is not going to like you. But I don't know that. I don't know that.
So you have to do a lot of behavior monitoring and a lot of posturing, right?
Posturing. I wouldn't dance the way I wanted to dance if I was naked alone in my house, the way I do in a club, because, you need to be a little bit more straight acting. That you being yourself, being your authentic feminine self would be dismissed, disrespected. You'd be alienated. You'd be like rejected. And I'm trying to avoid that.
So let's come back to this. You're talking about how femininity is read onto you when you're at a club and you're doing a lot of things to present more neutral or more masculine. If somebody reads you as feminine, what's the consequence of that?
I think. Oh, this is hitting somewhere. So you mean actual consequences?
Actual consequence for
Does my
you.
bank account go lower? Do I get to carry a pass now or something? Like, do I lose
Yes.
my hair? Okay, no, there's no actual physical ones. It's just emotional ones that come up for me. But this
Good.
person
Tell me about it.
cannot do it until I consent, which I get. But what comes up for me is immediately worthiness. I feel unworthy. I'm not as good as the person who is more masculine.
Okay. And how does it take you out of the situation or the game of flirting and cruising in that club? Because I think the club is not so different from Grindr. We're just using different strategies, right? And we're trying to attract a mate. And I'm thinking about you putting forward things that will get you more bites. So if somebody is attracted to you and you do get a bite, what does that say about you?
Oh, then I feel, so if I do get a bite.
If you do get a bite. I feel
like it's an achievement, a conquest.
Yes.
It feels like I'm good enough. Okay, see it done. You still have it. Like, baby, there's something.
Yes.
So I didn't fail in that mission. Yeah.
Okay. So we've hit on something here. So because you talk about it as an achievement, right? The inverse of that would be, I'm a failure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm not a failure. Oh, that thing hurts hard. Yeah. Trying to avoid that statement. It's very hard. Yeah.
It's really tough. I mean, it's a hard thing to contend with. And I appreciate your vulnerability in this moment as well, because I think lots of people are going to watch this and benefit from this.
I hope so.
But if we look at the last two thoughts in each cluster, the one is I'm being overlooked because I'm not good enough and not worthy, and I never was. And the other one is I'm a failure or I've failed, which is the opposite of achievement. Right? Now, have a look at these automatic thoughts and let me know which one do you think is the most salient, the most prominent in this particular situation where you hesitate to set bottom as a preference on Grindr. And the one you pick is what we're going to call the hot thought. It's the one that's driving a lot of the difficult emotions in the feelings
column. I'm scared. Definitely the second one. I'm a failure.
Okay. Okay, so I am a failure
because I'm a bottom.
Yeah. And if it's because I'm a bottom, it's because I'm feminine, which means because I'm not masculine enough. Is that right?
I'm not as powerful as the man.
Okay. All right. So the hot thought, right, that we're working with is I'm a failure for not being masculine or powerful enough. Take a deep breath with me. 1, 2, 3.
Sure. That's like quite, I don't know how we got here. That was quite a journey.
Yes. And you might feel tired or more vulnerable or a bit more spent
very
at this
vulnerable.
Point.
Yeah.
Yes.
My palms are sweaty.
I can appreciate that. You're talking about some very personal stuff. So I appreciate that. And I think your anxiety is a normal response to talking about this kind of thing with somebody who you've known me socially. So it's okay.
I'm loving it though. I think the fact that this could be a platform for someone else to benefit, I'm super grateful. So
you're into it. All right. Yeah. So the hot thought is I'm a failure for not being masculine or powerful enough. And now we want to evaluate that. So give me some evidence that supports that hot thought, that either you're a failure or for not being, you're a failure for not being masculine or powerful enough. And this could be like things people have told you, times you've gotten rejected, things like that.
Okay. Can it be any age, like from childhood, from now?
It could be any age. I think things from the recent past might be helpful, but if you want to go further back, you're welcome to.
Okay.
We need at least one thing from the recent past, but you can go further back if you need.
Yeah, okay. So it might just get a bit like deeper than
Okay, go
I
ahead.
initially understood. Okay. So I feel like I'm a failure deep down, because I don't think that when I compare, which is a horrible, horrible thing, when I compare myself linearly to somebody else, I immediately feel unattractive, because I don't have the physique of a typical man. Like, I'm not as muscular, I'm not as strong, I'm not as chiseled or defined as him. My build is rather lean and, petite. And that's why I gravitate more towards being bottom. But yeah, this is deep.
So when you talk about your physique not being that typical of a man, do you mean specifically gay men? Like, do you feel like that there's a specific aesthetic in gay community that you're responding to, or is it typical men in general?
It could be typically men in general, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you compare yourself and you're like, hey, I don't look like some of these people. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Where else do you feel like you're not masculine or powerful enough?
I don't like the things that men are interested in. Mm-hmm. I don't watch sport. I don't care for grown men kicking a ball or driving a car, making loud noise. I care about other things like cancer and, healthcare. Yeah. So I don't share the same interests as other men. Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit like I could never just be one of those get along guys. I am very empathic, very in touch with my emotion, a bit too much actually.
And being in touch with emotion is the opposite of masculinity.
Not in my family. Oh, fuck no. Father says stuff like, I cannot cry, I'm a man. And I'm like, huh? Yeah.
So I'm in touch with emotions. Dad says things like, men shouldn't
I cannot cry. I'm not allowed to. I'm a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boys don't cry. You remember that movie with...
yes.
What was that name? I loved it.
Yes, I remember it well. Okay. In the dating context, has there been any experiences where you've felt like a failure or like you haven't achieved in seducing somebody or getting their attention, specifically for not being masculine enough or powerful enough?
Yeah. So this is where it gets deep. I won't lie to you, because then if the issue that you've raised gets very intertwined with other stuff. I mean, it is very complex to break down, but it also comes down to body dysmorphia, where because I feel so wholly inadequate, I then end up getting a lot of like performance anxiety. So with a partner, so with a recent dating experience, it takes me a very long time to be comfortable with you in order to then start becoming versatile. Not that I don't have an erection, but the erection may not be there if it comes to a pressured situation. So if I feel pressured, nothing's happening. My body is completely in tune with something that I don't know what this fucking thing is, but it's there. And the idea is that I think my penis is not good enough. And I've tested this many times. So anyway, that's like a whole different topic. But it's like, one is like, I don't think my dick is big enough, so I should just be bottom. And then I go test it out, and I'm like, okay, my dick is not really that big enough, then why is this person gagging? Or why is this person in pain? So I'm like, okay, so then it is big enough. So what's the issue? And I'm like, I don't feel like it's worthy enough. I don't feel like I'm good enough. And this little dick is, little Adnan, and he's not good enough either. And we never were. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? My head is going to explode. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, so I have performance anxiety, and that's why I also then end up bottoming, because it's just a lot less pressured.
Yes.
I mean,
okay.
there's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. Fuck me. There's a lot of work. But the work is done in the beginning, and then you can just chill.
Right. So there's some beliefs you have about yourself that have led to performance anxiety. And in brackets, I put or performance reluctance. I reframe it that way because performance anxiety sometimes means it's understood as I can't do something. But actually, I think there's a reluctance to enter into an experience because it doesn't necessarily feel safe. We worry about being judged.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to use the word reluctance sometimes.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Like so even if I do talk, I'm not going to be a good talk. So what's the point?
Right. So with that, so we could follow that into a new thought record about performance anxiety, but in this particular case, we're talking about evidence that suggests that you've felt like a failure or not masculine or powerful enough. And you're saying that you've had instances of performance anxiety that reinforce that belief. Is that right?
Correct.
And
they intertwine,
right.
But yes. Yeah.
Yes. And your anxiety, your performance anxiety overlaps with body dysmorphia.
Yeah, the performance reluctance.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to read over these pieces of evidence that tell us where your thought, right, that I'm a failure for not being masculine or powerful enough, where they're rooted and where they come from and where they've been reinforced. So the evidence is, well, when I compare myself to other men, I don't have the same physique as them. I don't share the same interests as other men. I'm in touch with emotions. And dad said things like men shouldn't cry or you shouldn't cry because you're a man. My beliefs about myself have led to performance anxiety or performance reluctance. And my performance reluctance overlaps with body dysmorphia. And
your self-worth or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Now, what's some evidence that does not support the hot thought? So evidence that suggests you are not a failure. You've actually achieved in connection, in power, in being a man. When have you been celebrated?
I have so many people that reaffirm and validate and are my friends and contradict what my belief system tells me. There's so many people that are so upset when I say I'm actually like, I don't think of myself as X, Y, Z. And they're like, what? They affirm me. They definitely affirm me. That's right. Yeah.
But are those your friends?
Friends, acquaintances, people at gym. When I say something to the trainer and I'll just be like, and he's like, what are you talking about? You're actually so strong. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, feminine.
Yes.
So I can't.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can lift more than most people can. Yeah.
Wow. So trainer says you can lift more than most people. So that's nice, right? Because there's something about lifting that's great.
Lifting, even my push-ups, my sit-ups, I can do them properly and I can do them longer. Like, you got to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got
other things that affirm me is that obviously I don't know if we should put this in, but when it comes to that body dysmorphia, I've tested people's gag reflex with it, so it can't be as small as I think it is. I don't think it's a complete dick, but it's not small.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
I don't know how to use it. It's evidence that supports that my dick isn't actually that small. Like you couldn't deep throat it, basically.
Okay, so my dick isn't as small as I think. And now, I think, dick size, it does fluctuate and change between people. But the part that I'm hearing here that I think is most important is less about the size. You said gag, right? So I'm thinking other people are appreciating it as it is, regardless of an evaluation of its size, right? So I'm going to say, as you said, my dick isn't as small as I think. More importantly,
yeah,
people show me
Interest. No. Yes. I mean,
they're into it.
Yeah. They're into it.
Okay.
I mean, I've been in long-term relationships. I mean, if they weren't into it, what are you doing? Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I'm also curious to know if people and sexual partners in particular, or romantic partners, have affirmed your masculinity, your power, your sense of achievement in any context, whether it's sexual or otherwise.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about
that. I explained, somebody once asked me, what is it that I love about bottoming? Because they couldn't do it. They just couldn't get themselves to do it. And I explained to them what it is that I get psychologically, which is this idea of control. I mean, I can explain to you, Rahim, I mean, control, I have OCD. I get control over every single thing in my life. And so when it comes to this, I literally, one part of my life, not my career, not my car, not my home, not my family, not my friends, it's just one part of my life I actually can really let go of control, and I want to be submissive. And that's power. And he helped me understand, because I was like, oh, that's the most, and he was like, no, that's the most powerful thing that you could ever fucking do. You can actually surrender to someone. And I was like, is it powerful? I thought it was weak. And so that was something. But yes, I have been affirmed by somebody about changing my understanding of what it is that I enjoy and how that is still power.
Yes. Okay. So the evidence that doesn't support the idea that you're a failure for not being masculine or powerful enough is that there are many people who do affirm you. Your trainer says you can lift more than most people can. And you gave other examples of how you actually have quite a bit of core strength. You think about your dick size, and, people have shown you that they're into you and into your body. And other people actually envy that you can bottom, and they wish they could, right? So now we move to the next column, where we're thinking about an alternative thought or a more balanced thought to your hot thought, right? Which is that I'm a failure, for not being masculine or powerful enough. You're saying there is power in being able to let go and quote unquote surrender. What's another alternative or balanced thought you can think of that would actually be more helpful for you?
I think I'd like to affirm myself, more specifically, like the body dysmorphia stuff. I don't think it's the responsibility of a partner or friends or my trainer to affirm me of my to believe that self-acceptance and worth comes from nobody else but me. Because these people do it all the time, and it lasts for like a day or two, and then you're like, I'm back to where I was, because whatever was broken, it hasn't been healed. They put a plaster on it. The alternative thoughts is just self-affirmation. I definitely think so. If I can read some of these, I can already see the positive statement to them. And I don't know whether if I chant it a million times, whether I'll start believing it.
Okay, I'm going to write down something completely different.
I love you.
Well, you're talking about, this is an important thing. We're talking about systems of oppression and homophobia and femmephobia and misogyny and toxic masculinity. And I cannot let your alternative thought be, I shouldn't let other people affect how I think. I think to be kind to yourself, one of the alternative thoughts needs to be, it's normal to be affected by societal views.
That's right? Compassion. That's beautiful.
Yes. And so it's normal to be affected by societal views. I deserve self-compassion for being wherever I am in the process of self-acceptance.
Okay.
How does that feel?
That is so different. That is so much more better. Oh my God, there's so much more healing. I can actually feel like it doesn't feel as pressured and as dangerous as my one. Mine was like a dark alley, and yours feels a little bit lit.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well, here's the thing. Our culture and society is so individualistic that when it comes to identifying problems, we are happy to talk about how they're informed systemically. And then when it comes to the solution, we're like, oh, well, it's all individual. Somebody can't see me in a negative way unless I let them, right? I heard you say something to that effect.
So many times.
Yeah. And I think those kinds of affirmations are helpful to some degree, but it does also over individualize the issue, and it makes it about you being in control of how you feel. But actually, I think there's some value being able to say, the world is shitty and I'm affected by that. I'm responding. There's something about my intelligence, my awareness, how I show up in the world that's under attack, and I'm allowed to have a response to that. Right. So anyway, that's my piece. And I've inserted this alternative thought that isn't actually yours, but maybe you'll like it. So
I love it. I love it. Thank you. I'm literally blown away. Blown away. Yeah.
So your first alternative thought was there is power in being able to let go and surrender. And the other alternative thought is it's normal to be affected by societal views. I deserve self-compassion for being wherever I am in the process of self-acceptance. Are there any other alternative thoughts that you'd like to use, or you can think of that might be?
I want to talk more to the issue of my hesitance, using the same logic that you used.
Yes.
That it's okay for me. It is okay for me to have a sexual preference and not and feel a certain way about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. That I don't. I never used to think it was okay for me to do that. I thought it was weak, even to admit, to come to you and say, "Oh, Rahim, I think I have bottom shaming as a problem." I had this because of a systemic issue as well. I didn't just wake up and create it fucking self. This is society that also helped me. Yes.
Right. So I'm just typing something out here to put that into words. So what you're saying is it's okay for me to have a sexual preference. My shame comes from society, not my inherent weakness.
No, there's no weakness. In fact, and people are telling me it's strength, and I'm really good at what I do.
Yes. So, okay. Any more thoughts that you think would be useful as alternatives to I'm a failure for not being powerful or masculine enough? I wonder, you did say something about toxic masculinity. I wonder if there's something about saying you are man enough, or there's many ways to be a man.
There's me. Yeah. Because power shows up in different ways, right? I'm just going to think out loud if that's fine.
Yeah, do it.
Because power shows up in different ways. Power isn't just muscles. I don't think a man who's just muscular is particularly strong inside. And I can quote my father as the example, right? Mm-hmm. The idea is masculinity is something that is subjective, that is defined by each person. What is femininity, what is masculinity shouldn't be defined objectively. It should be defined by each person, and it should be challenged and grown and balanced and readjusted. And it's not static. It is non-linear. It's on a spectrum, and it should be on a spectrum. There are days when I wake up and I do feel really masculine. There are days when I wake up and I feel really femme. And that's perfectly fine. I don't know why is it that I have to look to outside of me, get some sort of validation to just to feel the okayness. Like, no, fuck that, man.
And so you're saying like masc and femme energy
is fluid, yeah.
And feels powerful.
It's powerful. Both, there's power and there's merit and there's demerit in whatever, in everything. Right? Too much of this, too much of that. Who cares? I'm just going to go with the flow and stop living in my damn head and putting things in labels.
Okay. So I'm just looking at your alternative thought list, and it's really good. So here's what we've got so far. There is power in being able to let go and surrender. It's normal to be affected by societal views. I deserve self-compassion for being wherever I am in the process of self-acceptance. It's okay for me to have a sexual preference. My shame comes from society, not my own weakness. Power shows up in different ways. Muscles don't mean anything in particular. Masc and femme energies feel powerful. Masculinity should be defined by me subjectively. So of all of these, Adnan, which one do you like the most? Do you believe in the most? Which one do you think is a really good alternative to the idea that you're a failure or not masculine or powerful enough? Which one really resonates with you?
Sure, all of them. If I just had to pick one.
Now,
I feel like it's the last one, actually.
Masculinity should be defined by me subjectively. Okay. I'm happy to pick that one.
That's resonating with me, where I feel like I now have a creative license or the permission from myself to finally just be okay. Because if for 1 second, and I don't believe you, but if for 1 second I allow your hypothesis to run true, I love what this idea could actually open up for me. That if I get to determine, not society gets to determine how masculine a man should be, that horrible word should. Ooh.
Yes.
Right?
So
I remove the word should and I define my masculinity. I love this.
Okay. So masculinity can be defined by me. Let's remove should.
Yeah.
So masculinity can be defined by me subjectively.
Or is defined by me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Before I highlight that one, I want you to, because you're somebody who's been telling me about affirmations. So I want you to look at the list again and make sure you're picking one that doesn't feel like a good affirmation, but is an alternative thought that you think you actually believe in. Sometimes affirmations miss the mark because they're too broad and they don't speak to you in a particular situation or in the context of your life. So I want to make sure the alternative thought that you pick to be something that really speaks to you.
Can I
take a moment?
And having read, I'm just reading it all again. Particularly the second one, I particularly love as well. Just the idea of showing myself some compassion, because that's like a bit of.
Do you believe that it's normal to be affected by societal views and that you deserve self-compassion? Do you believe those things?
I think I could do with that right now.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure. And so let's go back for a second. When you say masculinity is defined by me subjectively, because that was the other one you were going to pick, that's a perfectly okay one to pick. But I wonder if it sounds too broad. Like, do you believe it in your day-to-day life? That you're defining.
I think I understand what you're saying. The masculinity is defined by me subjectively is what I want to walk away with. Going forward as a take home, what I want to change. But right now, as a belief that I could do, I just want to give myself a hug inside and say, yes, babe, if this is what I did to you for so long, I'm sorry, because it was okay for me to be affected by society. I didn't know that until today. I didn't know that. Rahim, I didn't know that.
I know. I appreciate this. I'm glad. We're going to reflect in a moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight both those thoughts. One is it's normal for me to be affected by societal views. I deserve self-compassion for being wherever I am in the process of self-acceptance. And I'm going to highlight masculinity is defined by me subjectively because they're both important to you. When you think about those thoughts as you are in the situation where you're hesitating to select bottom as a preference on Grindr, and you say to yourself, like you repeat these two alternative thoughts to yourself, where's your shame at that point? Does it go down or is it the same?
It goes down. Yeah.
What rating
and I
would
can
you
explain
give it?
why.
Actually, tell me what rating you would give it. Let's give these re-ratings first, your feelings, and then we'll do the explanation.
Okay, so I'm rating shame. Okay, so I hesitate. So scenario in my head, I'm going with my Grindr. I'm literally about to say, so somebody asked and I'm about to say, yeah, I'm a bottom. There is an element of shame. I won't lie that it doesn't go away entirely, but
no,
I think
it won't go away entirely.
Yeah,
but you're telling yourself
it's very low. It's low.
Okay.
Yeah, give it like a 2 or 3.
Okay. What about fear?
No, 1.
Self-conscious?
I don't care about what you think anymore. I just don't.
Yeah,
a little bit more conscious, maybe like a 5.
No problem. And inadequate?
No. 2.
Okay. And unsafe?
No, 1.
Anxiety?
Yeah, a little bit. 4.
Okay. Excitement?
I'm about a bottom 10.
Anticipation.
Yeah, okay, because it's still the douching, so let's make that a 7.
Lustful.
Horny as fuck, so 10.
10. Okay. Hopeful.
Yeah, okay, 8. You can leave it as is. And longing, I still keep there. Yeah,
keep there. And now I wonder for you if new feelings come up, any new emotions. So one is self-compassion.
Acceptance. Yeah, there's some sort of like, it feels very light. It feels like a comfort within myself. You could call it acceptance or compassion, empathy. I'm okay. Whatever the word, the English word for this is.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I'm more okay.
Like content.
Stronger. More powerful. Like I don't need you to, I'm less concerned with what you need to say after I tell you what I need to say.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And when you give yourself self-compassion and you say to yourself, it's normal to be affected by societal views, is there a bit of sadness or grief that comes up there where you're like, I wish I wasn't so affected, but I am. I wonder if a kind of sadness or grief comes up for you.
Not particularly sadness, but a mourning. Like, I wish society wasn't this way. I wish it wasn't this way. But I also know that it is. There's the same time of me saying, I wish it wasn't like this, but I accept you for the way that it is. Because if I don't, I won't move forward from you. And I've been stuck on you for very long. But I do feel pity for the next generation that's already here that I have not managed to change society for. We all had a role to play, and I hope the next generation can fix what we couldn't.
So in a way, do you also feel determined to make change?
In my own way, yeah. I mean, I don't feel as determined as you would be.
Okay, let's not compare. Okay. And then your shame went down. Your rating went from 8 to 3, fear from 7 to 1, self-conscious 9 to 5, inadequate 5 to 2, unsafe 8 to 1, anxiety 7 to 4. Your excitement rating went from 9 to 10, anticipation 6 to 7, lustful 8 to 10, hopeful stayed at 8, longing stayed at 6. When we contained, managed, countered some of the difficult feelings, there was space for new feelings. Now, I'm going to tell you, as much as I like the positive feelings that come up, the one that I think needs a lot of attention is mourning. Okay, so here are the new feelings that came up for you. Mourning, determined, self-compassion, acceptance, comfort, content, strong, powerful. So those are all great feelings that we made way for. Why am I highlighting mourning? Because I think when we realize that, there's some things we can't change, or that we've internalized difficult messages from a dominant system, I think there is a kind of grief and mourning, right? That's there. And if we're going to have self-compassion, we also need to grieve. And there's somebody you're trying to be in this process, right? When you talk about how you set up your online profile from a marketing perspective, you're trying to portray something that is desirable. And when you let that go, you're grieving the idea or the possibility of meeting those people, right? There's a lost opportunity, and you're starting to be content with that lost opportunity. So there is some grief and mourning there, right? Because you're like, I'm living in my truth, and that means I miss out on this other thing, right?
Yeah.
So
there's both. Yeah.
Yes. And then I'd love to hear maybe a couple of just reflections or thoughts on this process, and maybe how it differed from previous CBT exercises you've done, or what you got
I've
out
never
of
done
this.
anything this effective. What's interesting for me is that it's nothing new that you say.
Yeah.
It's not like I haven't heard this message before, but I think the message had to come in the right format, in the right time, in the right space that I was in to be able to hear what you had to say. Because what's interesting for me is that, it's not like words that you haven't understood before or messages that people haven't tried communicating. Show some compassion for yourself. You can't have both. Of course, it's completely logical. Of course, I couldn't have both. And I get that. I couldn't win. I can't be everybody's type. And so a part of me is perfectly okay to let a whole bunch of people, including myself, be disappointed that I won't be able to. The same way I give people the opportunity to that I swipe left for, they can swipe left to me, and I give them that same entitlement, right? Because I'm allowed the same. The idea is that the same way I allow someone to be a fuckboy, and I was probably a fuckboy to someone else, the same way that system is that I would disappoint other people by not being into them, and they'll then be disappointed by not being into me. The idea is, I'll be disappointed that they won't be into me. The point is that I don't know why that just didn't make sense before, but now when you put it all together as a thought record, I can actually see that maybe closing out on that, the idea that I do need to mourn, that by coming to terms with who I am, I might not be attractive, or I might not be able to get every guy that ideally on paper I would have wanted to have gotten.
Yes.
That I might not actually be. Yeah.
Yes. And there's something attached to being able to appear attractive to somebody else and seduce them, right? It gives you power. And you said it, it's a sense of achievement. Now, if we don't get that, we feel like a failure. So just when you're talking about letting people know on a dating and hookup app that you're a bottom or you want to be a receptive partner during sex, deep down, the thing that you're really contemplating is not just about opportunity. It's about how you're seen as a man and as a success, as a man in the world, right? And so it taps into some really deep things that you are able to also trace from your childhood and dad's messages about what it means to be a man, right? So the level, the degree, the depth with which the mourning has to happen is not. It's quite deep. It's not. It's not simplistic by any means.
No.
And then I'm going to leave it there.
Also, I think mourning comes with that acceptance,
Yes. And then I'm going to leave it there for today. I want to thank you for joining us and being part of this public experiment on my video podcast. And I want to thank our listeners and viewers for tuning in. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to stop recording. Once again, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the CBT Dive. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at thecbtdive.ca. You can also listen on the go wherever you get your podcasts. To follow Rahim on social media, check out ladyativan.com. See you soon.